Well, I've officially run out of work that doesn't involve me having to revisit the fabrication portion of this project. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sebastian. I'm building a Mk1 TT Quattro Evolution. If you have been following along, a few episodes back, I took my hand at trying to fabricate and TIG weld for the very first time. I have zero previous experience. It went all right. I got a few things done, but a few things did not go as planned. Now that did throw a wrench in some things, and I decided to pivot just to keep moving forward, keep making some progress. Well, now we're at the part where we've got things that are waiting on the placement of the things that we need to finish. So let's flip over to the engine bay. I did some work off camera. I want to show you what I changed. Here's the new setup. I like this a million times better. This, I think, is initially what I attempted to do. Not entirely sure what I was thinking the first time, but if you remember, this entire section of the pipe came directly off and vertical from the compressor housing. That meant that my radius started pretty much at the strut bar here, and the strut bar is my point of reference of basically the highest that I can go. The hood pretty much sits not much further above it, so staying underneath it was critical. That was not going to happen with the initial setup. So now that I have it this way, it clears everything. It's utilizing the same route that my previous setup was and how a factory 225 sits. So the provisions and everything are already set up in a way where it allows clearance and pretty much a pathway for the piping. And on top of that, that is also going to work perfect for my feed and return lines because I did want them to run over and then down into there so we can finish that up. Which was another reason that this needed to get done before we can move on. So with this all mocked up and everything now, I think I want to get it tacked before I finish it, or before I do my final beads. So let's get this pulled off. Let's bring it over to a little welding station and let's start tacking these pieces together and go for one final fitment here before we seal this thing up. Before we start tacking things, what changed? So I was playing around with my machine a little bit, and basically what I did was just I increased the frequency. My frequency was definitely a little too low for the material thickness, so I was just blowing straight through it. Like I said, I played around with it a little bit, and I increased it higher than I had it. I initially was somewhere around like 120. Unfortunately, my machine doesn't have anything more than a minimum or a maximum reference. You can obviously split that and then find where 120 is. And then from there, I just went a little bit higher until I could get something that I could control that would get me a nice pool and then wouldn't burn straight through this thing. So I was able to, like I said, get beads going around there. Granted, this piece was already ruined. And I figured, why not try to fill in these monstrous holes just to see if I could. And I was getting to it, but I'm wasting filler material. I had to order some more because I didn't realize I was slow. But we can set this aside. We can start tacking this thing. I think I want to set some reference lines with how it's taped currently, just to kind of have an idea of how these are situated. And then I'm going to try to be smart about this because I don't want to forget about this collar. This collar needs to be welded on the pipe. There is no other way to get it on there. So if I forget to put this on and I get this thing sealed, oops, we're going to have to cut it and put it in. And then same with this. This is not necessarily straight, it's at somewhat of an angle. So I just want to create some reference marks. That way I can take the tape off and then start tacking the pieces that don't have any like major bends like this one that I have to consider, put the majority of it together. And then, yeah, take it from there. Like I said, I'm not a fabricator. This is what you're seeing in real time is the most that I have ever done. so far so good. I'm pleased with how the charge pipe tacked up. The fitment's pretty good. It is sitting up a little bit higher because I've got this supporting it, but now comes the more challenging parts. Because I don't have jigs or anything like that, I need to I'm gonna tack the elbow onto the compressor housing, and then I need to tack the flange, now that I cut it off of the compressor, onto this 90-degree elbow. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, but I guess if I tack it, I can just cut it off, try it again. So I mean, really not the end of the world, but I don't know what to expect. That's kind of it, you know. Don't know what to expect. I'm inexperienced, and I just want it to work well and look good. I mean, as best as I can get it, you know. But yeah, let's give it a shot, I guess. Let's pull it out, tack it up, and I guess see what happens. All right, so the main thing here is, I guess, just not ruining my compressor housing or ruining my elbow. I don't really want to buy a new one, and I don't want to buy a new elbow and have to wait for it. But we're gonna get this cleaned up a little bit. I made some reference marks just to, I mean, I guess, you know, try my best at keeping it as lined up as I possibly can. We'll see how that goes. That's the whole point of tacking, I suppose, right? I'm gonna drop my frequency down to 120 from 160. And, well, let's see if I can get a tack in here. All right, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm really happy that it's lining up, and it's lining up really well. I'm not having to fight it or anything. I did get a total of 4 tacks on it, so I'm confident that it's not going to turn on me left or right, up, down. You know, we've got all the axis locked in and solid, so shouldn't move on me. Now I do wish I could get you an angle from here, because it's flat. The faces are absolutely flat. I'm feeling good about it. So I think from here, you know, I'm not going to spend at least recording the welding of all of it. We've got plenty of that stuff already kind of done. Might do a little bit, but I think a few things I want to do before we move on to the throttle body portion. I'm going to add a few more tacks, kind of do the same thing I did here, add 4 on each side so they don't move. This is the part that I'm most concerned about, because it does have a little bit of a gap. It's not completely flush, so it does have a little bit of movement left and right. So I think we're going to put this collar back on. We're just going to mock it up here and tight. We'll get our movement here, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line. And just use that again as a reference point. All right, now that I got the tacking out of the way and I know that everything fits, I'm confident in just kind of knocking that out at a later point here. But now I can finally get this side that gave me such a headache the first time, so the throttle body portion. So seeing as I completely ruined the original piece, I did go out, I bought a new one and I salvaged, or I bought a new reducer and then I salvaged another one of my Harget ends. I only have one left, so I can't screw this one up, or I'd rather not screw this one up. But I'm getting a little bit more comfortable getting this together, so I feel much better than I did the first time. But now, I did have to switch things up a little bit. So very similarly related to the issue that I had with the turbo outlet. The original 90-degree elbow that I had, the radius was just too open, or the sweep was too long. So there's no way to bring this down and get this to mate without having a tight 90-degree bend. Not the end of the world. I'm not necessarily concerned about it. I should have bought this, I mean, truth be told, to begin with. But here we are. So I've got to shorten it from this end, and I've got to shorten it from this end to make it all fit. So now it's just a matter of measuring, checking, cutting, checking again, and hope that I don't screw this up. Well, that plan of going really slow lasted all of 5 seconds. I cut the bottom end a little too short. Now, what ended up happening was I normally do my cutting, or have been doing my cutting on my hydraulic table. That puts me at a really good height where I can see top down and really eyeball a straight edge. This time I tried to be efficient because I had all my welding stuff on my hydraulic table, so I thought I'd use the workbench. That put me at about right here, and I just didn't have the ability to see it well enough to keep a straight edge. And then when I tried to make a correction, it just bit in a way that I didn't want it to, and then it just, you know, well, this happened. So sucks. I'm really bummed out about it, but you know, this is kind of part of the process of, one, doing something brand new, and two, trying to do something a little differently, and also with tools that aren't necessarily designed for the way that I'm using them. I mean, you know, you can make anything work if you are creative enough, but you know, you're just at risk of making silly mistakes like this, again, especially while you're learning. So your mileage may vary. This was mine. Now, I'm not necessarily too worried about not being able to fix this, because I have plenty of, I guess, like these straight cylindric sections, both from my previous one, and then obviously what I've cut off of this one. Thankfully, I did get this top side after the bend solid. I've got it tested and fitted, and it's exactly where it needs to be. So I didn't screw that one up. That one would be considerably more difficult, if not almost impossible to fix if I did too short. So I cleaned off my welding stuff. I'm putting my vise back on the welding table, and we're gonna do this the way that I was used to doing it. And hopefully I should be able to knock this out in a much better fashion here, albeit giving myself a little bit extra work. are onto the last bit here. Grounding this has been an absolute nightmare, so of course as a result my welds are looking atrocious. But a tack is a tack as long as it's put together. I might be able to salvage what the rest of that looks like at a later date, or rather once I actually like fully weld this thing. So let's try to get this thing. I gotta figure something out here. I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna do this. But I guess let's get creative. Let's clean this up and I guess take it from there. Well, it's far from pretty, but it works, and that's all I need right now. This grounding sucks. Well, there it is. My tacks aren't pretty, but they hold. And I mean, that's all I can really ask for. Like I was mentioning earlier, this was incredibly challenging to do, mainly because of the grounding. I was having a really challenging time getting a solid ground so then I could get a clean arc. I do have an idea for when I get this all welded together, so we're not entirely out of the woods yet. I've got a lot of work to do still, but I'm not going to do this as a part of this episode. That's just way too much welding, and I need to try to fit this while I do the rest of the work here, because while it does look mostly put together, we still have a ton of work to do. But I did do some really cool things. Something that I completely forgot to mention. So my throttle body is an 80 mil Hemi throttle body. It's like 82-ish. They don't make, or at least not very many companies make an 80 mil throttle body gasket. The Hemi gasket was an O-ring apparently. I don't know what it actually looks like just through some digging. So this doesn't really exist. The only ones that I was ever able to find a long time ago was Integrated Engineering for the intake manifold that I used to have on this thing, because they had a transitionary 80 to a 62. And then there is a company in Canada that unfortunately does not sell these, at least to the US, as of recent, or at least as of me trying to buy them. So what I ended up doing was I went to Send Cut Send and I made my own. These ones I made very easily because the design is super simple. It's basic shapes. The distances are even all the way around, and then obviously your bore in the center, so it made it for very easy. I used their web app designer tool on there to make it, and I just did it on the fly. So I made two of them. One of them is currently installed, and I torqued the throttle body down so that I can get my fitment perfect. And then I have this just in case I might want to do some cleanup on the throttle body, so I'll have to take it apart, and I don't know how this material is going to behave after it's been torqued down and then untorqued. I don't know if I'll be able to use it, so I bought one just in case, because this is made out of gasket grade cork material. It is resistant to heat, fuel, oils, you name it, it'll withstand all of that. So that made me really happy, and the fact that it fits, no issues there. And then some things too that we'll need to do. So these ones, these are for the coolant lines. This one is a 90-degree elbow. That'll go in place of the 45 that the factory coolant outlet has, or inlet, I don't remember. So now that I have this 3-inch intake tube, or I guess a charge pipe, going into the throttle body, the 45 runs straight into it. So this 90 will allow me to go around it, And I've already measured the tube. I'm gonna cut it right at the bend. It's gonna fit perfectly. And then I've got this one for the heater core. This one will specifically be for the one that juts out at maybe like a 30 degree. It's not quite straight, it's not quite 45, so it goes right into the path of the turbo inlet. So that's obviously not gonna work if I wanna run my heater core, which I do. So we're gonna run this one instead, and that should allow us to clear the intake, because I'm gonna run a 45 degree elbow out of there for the intake. So aside from that, we've got a lot of wiring to do, which I think is what I'm going to do next. I've decided I'm going to reuse my oil cooler. That's going to be fine. I'm trying to pretty much mitigate unnecessary extra work. If it works or worked previously and it doesn't need to be modified to accommodate the new setup, we're going to keep it, we're going to use it. That's stuff that we can do later. I really need to trim my list down to things that need to happen versus things I want. So the wants will just get pushed down the line. We'll worry about them at a later date and just focus on the things that we need. So with that being said, you guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. This has been an absolutely monumental task for me. I've said it before and I've said it again. This is the most fabricating, the most welding that I've ever done, period. It's actually the first time I've done any welding and fabricating. For me, this has been the biggest of biggest mountains to kind of challenge and, you know, just to take it on. So like I said, not out of the woods yet. It's tacked together and it fits. Now I just need to make sure that I can weld it together without blowing any holes in it. So that'll be the biggest thing. But anyway, don't forget that the merch store is now live. So if you'd like to grab yourself a t-shirt like this or a hat, you can do so on there, and that goes in direct support to everything that I do here, the projects, the builds, and if you'd like to continue seeing me show you how and why I do things the way that I do. And lastly, the Discord. I'd love to continue growing a community. I like to share all of my experiences, everything that I've learned. It's how I learned. What I do here is effectively just talking to people that were a lot smarter than me that were also willing to share their knowledge. So that'll be a great place for that, or if you just want to share your builds, it's a great place to just come in and chat with me and the rest of our members that are on there. But with that being said, you guys, I'm going to take a break. I'm beat. So I will catch you guys in the next episode.